Hi guys, Andy C here from Chappell Natural Bodybuilding, and I'm going to talk about one of the hot topics in fitness just now, and that is the subject of meal frequency. So, should we eat more or should we eat less to reach our fitness goals? And I guess I've come at this from an almost unique perspective, in so much that I am a professional bodybuilder. I've competed at the highest level. I've also been a very successful amateur, and I've been competing now for almost 10 years. I think I've done almost every possible diet you could possibly do, and I've probably tried about every single meal frequency pattern that you could possibly do as well. And then on the other hand, my background is in nutritional science, so I have the ability to go out there and to read the scientific research on the subject and to then come to conclusions on it, and then maybe implement my findings into my training and see how it affects my body in almost my own scientific experiment. So with these sort of debates, I always think a good place to start is to go on and see what the scientific societies say on this. I mean, what are the position stances on the subject? So if we go on and we have a look at what the ISSN says, so that's the International Society of Sports Nutrition, which is a great resource. You can see that they've actually got position stances on a whole load of stuff, and they have a position stance on meal frequency, and you see that their sort of stance on it is that, well, in sedentary individuals, having more meals probably doesn't really make that much of a difference. There's probably no real advantage in terms of fat loss. They also sort of state that in terms of calorie deficits, if there's enough protein in your diet, then there might be an advantage of having more meals compared to less meals. And this sort of comes back to this idea that a higher meal frequency is more anabolic, it stimulates protein synthesis. They also say that having higher meals might be more satiating in some ways, so if you have more meals, then you're less likely to feel hungry throughout the day, and that having more meals might be advantageous for you in terms of reducing your blood lipids and a few other sort of chemical markers in your blood as well. And one more, I forget what it is, I'll just have a look. Yes, that was it. That having an increased meal frequency doesn't increase your thermogenesis to any sort of degree. So by eating more, you're not likely to heat up enough so that you start burning any more fat. I know that's a sort of bro argument that's sometimes thrown around out there. Now Alan Aragon, he actually did a review of the ISSN stance, and he actually sort of came to the conclusion that there wasn't really a whole lot of evidence to really support a lot of those claims in that stance in itself. So you can, if you go online, you can actually read his review, and you can read the ISSN's review, and you can maybe come to your sort of own conclusions that might be maybe somewhere in the middle. It's up to you. I then went on, I had a little look at the American College of Sports Medicine website and see what their position stance was on meal frequency and meal timing, and actually they don't actually have a stance on it. Their sort of recommendation is simply that athletes probably require, well, they do require more energy than your sedentary individual, thereby eating more calories is going to be advantageous, and that including things throughout the day such as snacks before and after you exercise and between meals might be a good way to sort of get these extra calories in you to help you reach your performance goals. So they don't really have a stance on that at all. And then if we have a look at the latest evidence that sort of came out, there was a large-scale meta-analysis published last year, and that was by Alan Aragon himself. He sort of reviewed the research, and they came to, him and his colleagues, they came to the conclusion that really there was not really any advantage to be gained by having more meals versus less meals in terms of fat loss or in terms of changes in body composition or in terms of muscle mass at all. I think if you look through the data with fine-tooth comb, you can find that having 5 meals versus 2 meals, there might be a very slight advantage, but in terms of clinical significance, I mean that you were talking very marginal, less than half a kilogram advantage over the course of the studies, and a lot of the research was sort of being pulled in one direction just by one study. Now, the caveat to all that, the ISSN stance, the Alan Aragon review of that stance, and the paper that he published, the meta-analysis, is that a lot of these studies have been done in overweight individuals who are sedentary and not necessarily exercising. So in terms of the application to the fitness community, you sometimes have to take these things with a pinch of salt and say, well, we're probably lacking good research in this area to say that having more versus less or less versus more is advantageous to sort of reach your fitness goals. So I'm not going to pretend like I've read absolutely everything there is to read on this subject, and I'm always sort of open to learning more and reading more. I did see an interesting article the other day that was talking about the effects of regular meal patterns as opposed to meal numbers, and that suggested that actually regular meal patterns may be at least as important as the number of meals throughout the day, which is quite interesting, but I don't think there was the research was even in that way conclusive. So it all sort of comes back to that age-old statement that more research is probably needed on it. So that kind of makes me always a little bit sceptic of the people that sort of sit in the camps of being hardcore in terms of you don't need to eat more meals, you just need the calories in the day, that's important, versus the other guys at the same time saying you definitely need to eat more meals, that's what's important, eating less meals won't get you anywhere, don't you know that? And myself, I kind of probably fall somewhere in the middle of all that. I mean, from bodybuilding years, a lot of the things that we do in bodybuilding are things that we've picked up from other bodybuilders that have been successful, and we've read in magazines, and that we've just sort of implemented ourselves down the years without sort of questioning. And really, admittedly, a lot of things are probably ritualistic. It's part of the whole sort of bodybuilding lifestyle. But I would say there are definitely some advantages to be gained by eating more meals versus less meals. And so much as practicality, I mean, eating say 4,000 or 5,000 calories, which I have done in a day, is challenging, especially if you eat it from quote clean food. So if you can spread it out over the course of more meals to get your calories in, then it definitely makes things a little bit easier, even if it isn't in any way slightly more anabolic than eating say 3 meals. I mean, at the same time, if you're struggling to consume enough meals in a day because you just simply don't have the time to sit down and have all these meals, there's definitely an advantage to putting your food into less meals. I mean, don't put yourself out. If you only get one break a day and you wake up at say 7 o'clock in the morning and you've got to eat your work at 8, and then you've not got time to eat another meal again until say like 7 at night, just after you finish training or whatever, and then you've got to go to bed because you've got to start that whole cycle again, then that's just the pattern that you're going to have to follow. It's not to say that it's going to be any less productive than the sort of 5 meal frequency now that I would say sort of follow, or 6 meal frequency. And I guess a lot of this comes down to saying really, I mean, what's optimal? What is optimal meal frequency to reach your goal? And it's probably the one that works best for you, because we simply don't have enough good research on the subject just now to sort of say this is the best pattern, this is what's going to work, and this is what we should be following to either build more muscle or lose more fat or to lift more weights. I know some of the stuff out there that's quite interesting just now is stuff surrounding muscle protein synthesis and this idea of anabolism. So if you could spike protein synthesis throughout the day several times, this might in some way produce more muscle at the end of, say, 8 weeks if you followed 5 meals versus 3 meals. But sometimes I really wonder how good that research really is. I mean, these are soft molecular markers that we're actually talking about here. We're not talking in terms of muscle accretion. We're just talking sort of muscle protein synthesis being upregulated in terms of a percentile, and the appearance of a certain amino acids flowing through a vein in your leg. I mean, that's how they measure that sort of stuff. So that's kind of my thoughts on the subject. Just sort of take home messages. I don't think the evidence on the subject is really that good either way to say that you should or you shouldn't have more meals. I don't think we should be sort of being zealots on the subject and saying you definitely need to do this or you definitely need to do this sort of strategy. I also think that the best meal pattern is the one that's probably going to work best for you. If you think having more meals throughout the day is going to motivate you more to reach your goal, or if having more meals just fits into your schedule a little bit better because you're eating 5,000 calories in a day, then definitely go for it. But if you don't have the time to eat that many meals a day, or it doesn't work for you, or you simply don't enjoy eating or whatever, then hey, don't worry about it. You following a 3-meal pattern or a 2-meal pattern might be just as effective. So that's all I've got to say about the subject. If you liked my video, then check out some of my other videos and stay posted for some more videos from my Facebook page, and thanks for watching.